The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber slid open with a soft hiss. Captain Lee Tae-ho walked through them for the last time. His blue uniform was clean and pressed, but his face showed the weight of what was happening. Behind him, two other humans followed. Dr. Park Soo-jin carried a datapad filled with research files. Ambassador Kim Do-hyun held a small box containing the official seal of humanity's membership in the Council. The chamber was huge. It could hold representatives from all 47 member species of the galaxy. Today, most of the seats were full. The alien delegates sat in their special chairs, designed for their different body types. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others had multiple eyes or strange skin that changed color. But they all shared one thing today. They all looked happy. Captain Lee walked to the center of the chamber. A bright light shone down on him from above. Around him, the other species watched from their raised seats. It felt like being in a deep pit with everyone looking down at him. Today marks the end of humanity's membership in the Galactic Council, announced Counselor Vexitar. He was a Zenthari, one of the proudest species in the galaxy. His skin was silver and smooth like metal. His voice was cold and formal. After much discussion and many votes, we have decided that humanity's presence is no longer beneficial to galactic peace. Dr. Park stepped forward. She was a small woman with kind eyes, but today those eyes were sad. We have prepared all our research files for transfer to the Council archives, she said. Her voice was steady, even though her hands shook slightly. Our medical research, our engineering solutions, our diplomatic records, everything we have learned in our 50 years as council members. Many of the alien delegates shifted in their seats. Some made sounds that might have been laughter in their species. Others simply stared with what looked like satisfaction. Ambassador Kim opened the small box he carried. Inside was a metal disc with Earth's symbol on it. It had represented humanity in the Council for 5 decades. I return this seal to the Council, he said. May you find the peace you seek. Counselor Zenthra of the Vorthak species stood up. The Vorthak were known for their intelligence and their cold logic. Peace will indeed come, she said. Humanity's reckless methods have caused nothing but problems. Your species refuses to follow proper procedures. You ignore established protocols. You make friends with primitive species that should remain under Council guidance. Captain Lee looked up at her. We helped those species because they needed help, he said simply. You interfered with the natural order, Zenthra replied. The Council has rules for a reason. Advanced species guide the less advanced. It has always been this way, but humans think they know better. We think everyone deserves a chance to grow, Dr. Park said quietly. Counselor Vexitar made a sound like metal scraping metal. It was how his species showed displeasure. This is exactly the problem. Humans see potential where there is none. You waste time and resources on species that will never advance. You create chaos with your unpredictable solutions. Ambassador Kim looked around the chamber. In 50 years, we have helped end 12 wars, cured 6 different plagues, and established peaceful contact with over 30 species. How is this chaos? Your methods are dangerous, said another delegate. This one was from the Kethmore, a bot species that looked like large insects. You experiment with dangerous technologies. You try solutions that no sane species would attempt. You put everyone at risk. Captain Lee smiled sadly. Sometimes the impossible solution is the only one that works. And sometimes it destroys everything, Vexitar said firmly. The Council has voted. Humanity must leave galactic space within 30 days. You will take your ships, your people, and your dangerous ideas far from civilized worlds. Dr. Park looked at her datapad one more time. There are some research projects we were working on, problems that might affect multiple species in the future. If we could just finish. No, Zenthra cut her off. Whatever problems exist, the Council will handle them properly, through established methods and proven procedures. The three humans exchanged glances. Captain Lee straightened his shoulders. "Then we will go," he said. "But we want it known that we leave unwillingly. We believe the galaxy is stronger when all species work together as equals. The galaxy will be stronger without human chaos," Vextar declared. Many other delegates made sounds of agreement. Ambassador Kim placed the seal on a small table in the center of the chamber. The metal disc caught the light for a moment, then seemed to grow dim. 50 years of partnership ends here," he said. The three humans turned and walked toward the exit. Their footsteps echoed in the large chamber. Behind them, the alien delegates began to talk excitedly. Some were already discussing how to divide up the space routes that humanity had been managing. Others talked about taking over the research, projects humans had been working on. As the doors closed behind the humans, Counselor Vextar stood up again. "Let this day be remembered," he announced to the chamber. "Today we chose order over chaos. Today we chose wisdom over recklessness. Today, the galaxy became truly civilized." The chamber erupted in sounds of celebration. Different species made different sounds, but they all meant the same thing: joy, relief, victory. Outside the chamber, Captain Lee, Dr. Park, and Ambassador Kim walked down a long corridor. Their ship was waiting at the spaceport. In 30 days, every human in Council space would board evacuation ships and leave forever. "Do you think we're making a mistake?" Dr. Park asked quietly. "Maybe we really were too reckless." Captain Lee shook his head. "We saved lives. We helped people. We made the galaxy a little better. That's never a mistake." Ambassador Kim looked back toward the chamber doors. "They think they're getting rid of a problem," he said. "But problems don't go away just because you ignore them." "What do you mean?" Dr. Park asked. Kim smiled grimly. "They'll find out soon enough." 3 weeks later, the last human ship left Council space. Captain Lee stood on the bridge of his vessel, watching the stars change as they jumped into hyperspace. Behind them, 47 alien species celebrated their victory. In the Galactic Council chamber, Counselor Vextar raised a ceremonial cup. "To a peaceful galaxy," he declared. All around him, other delegates raised their own cups. "To peace," they echoed. None of them noticed the small warning light blinking on one of the monitoring stations. It had been blinking for 3 days. But the human technician who usually checked it was gone, and no one else knew what it meant. 6 months had passed since the last human ship disappeared into the darkness of space. The Galactic Council had settled into their new routine. Trade flowed smoothly along established routes. Diplomatic meetings followed proper procedures. Everything was orderly and peaceful, just as they had wanted. Counselor Vextar sat in his office, reviewing reports from across the galaxy. The silver-skinned Zenthari felt satisfied with how things were going. No more human interference. No more unexpected solutions to problems that weren't supposed to exist. No more chaos. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. His assistant entered the room. "Sir, we have received an urgent message from the Outer Rim territories." Vexatar looked up from his reports. The Outer Rim was far from the civilized center of the galaxy. Mostly primitive species lived there, the kind that humans used to waste time helping. "What could be urgent out there?" "There appears to be some kind of illness spreading among several species on the border worlds," his assistant said. "The local governors are requesting medical assistance." Vexatar waved a hand dismissively. "Send them standard medical supplies and basic treatment protocols. These primitive species often struggle with simple diseases." 3 days later, the K assistant returned with more reports. This time, he looked worried. "Sir, the illness is spreading faster than expected. It has jumped to 5 different species now. None of our standard treatments are working. This caught Vextar's attention. 5 species? That's unusual. Different species rarely share the same diseases. That's what makes it so strange, sir. The illness affects Kretai, Mordoon, Zelf, and 2 others. Their biology is completely different from each other. Vextar stood up and walked to his window. Outside, he could see the great city that surrounded the council building. Everything looked normal and peaceful. Have our medical experts examined the data? Yes, sir. They are confused. Dr. Yexelon says it doesn't follow any known patterns of disease transmission. Then we need better experts, Vextar said firmly. Contact the medical council. Have them send their best scientists to investigate. The assistant hesitated. Sir, they have already reviewed the data. They recommended we check the human medical archives. Vextar turned sharply. The human archives? Why would we need those? Dr. Yexelon mentioned that humans often studied theoretical cross-species diseases, problems that might affect multiple different species at once. Theoretical problems, Vextar repeated coldly. More human waste of time and resources. Perhaps, sir, but the illness is spreading to more worlds each day. That evening, Vexatar met with Counselor Zenthra of the Vorthak. They sat in a private dining room, sharing a meal and discussing council business. Zenthra's logical mind always helped Vexatar think through problems. I heard about the outer rim illness, Zenthra said. How serious is it? Probably nothing major, Vextar replied. Some primitive disease that will burn itself out naturally. Zenthra paused in her eating. The reports I saw mentioned multiple species being affected. That is statistically improbable. Which is why it will burn out quickly. Nature doesn't allow such things to continue. Unless, Zenthra said slowly, it was designed to affect multiple species. Vexatar stared at her. Designed? By whom? I don't know. But I accessed some of the human research files today. Out of curiosity, Zenthra set down her eating utensil. They had studied something they called convergent pathogen evolution, the idea that a disease might evolve to jump between very different species. Human imagination, Vextar said dismissively. They saw problems everywhere. Perhaps. But their research included potential treatments for such a disease, treatments our medical experts haven't tried. Over the next week, the situation grew worse. The illness had spread to 12 worlds and was affecting 8 different species. Ships from affected areas were being quarantined. Trade routes were being disrupted. Dr. Yexelon, the council's chief medical officer, requested an emergency meeting. She was a Vorthak like Zenthra, with the same logical approach to problems. But when she spoke to the assembled counselors, she sounded frustrated. The pathogen is unlike anything in our databases, she reported. It changes its structure depending on which species it infects. In Kretai, it attacks the respiratory system. In Mordoon, it affects the nervous system. In Zelf, it disrupts their electrical organs. How is that possible? Asked Counselor. Threx of the Kethmore. It shouldn't be possible, Dr. Yexelan admitted, unless it was specifically engineered to target the biological weaknesses of multiple species. Are you suggesting this is a weapon? Vextar asked. I don't know what to suggest, but I have reviewed the human medical archives more thoroughly. Dr. Yoon Hai-Wan, one of their xenobiologists, wrote several papers on this exact type of pathogen. The chamber grew quiet. Dr. Yoon Hai-Wan had been one of the humans who left 6 months ago. What did her papers say? Zenthra asked. That such diseases might evolve naturally in areas where many different species interact frequently, like trade routes or border regions. Dr. Yexelon paused. She also developed theoretical treatments. Theoretical, Vextar emphasized. Human guesswork. Sir, with respect, our proven methods are not working. The illness has now reached 17 worlds. Another counselor spoke up. What would these theoretical treatments require? Dr. Yexelon consulted her notes. Complex biomolecular, synthesis, custom adaptation for each affected species, and something Dr. Yoon called intuitive pathogen modeling. She wrote that successful treatment would require thinking like the disease itself. Thinking like a disease? Threx made the clicking sound that showed Kethmore confusion. What does that mean? I'm not certain. Human medical practices often included elements that seemed unscientific. Vextar felt a cold sensation in his stomach. Are you telling us that only humans could treat this illness? I'm telling you that human methods might be our only option. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some counselors argued for trying the human treatments. Others insisted their own scientists could find a solution. A few suggested simply quarantining the affected regions until the disease burned out. We will not resort to human methods, Vextar declared. Our scientists are capable of solving this problem through proper research and established procedures. But even as he spoke, new reports were arriving. The illness had jumped to a major trade hub. 3 council member species had now reported cases, and something else was happening in the affected regions. Several of the primitive species that humans had befriended were closing their borders, not just to infected ships, but to all council vessels. They claimed to be protecting themselves, but their defenses seemed unusually well organized, almost as if someone had taught them how to create effective quarantine procedures. Late that night, Vexitar sat alone in his office reading Dr. Yoon Hae Wan's research papers. The human woman had written about diseases that didn't exist yet. She had imagined problems that seemed impossible, and she had created solutions for threats that everyone else had ignored. One line from her research stood out. The galaxy is more connected than we realize. When we help one species become stronger, we help them all survive together. Vextar closed the file and stared out his window at the peaceful city. For the first time since the humans left, he wondered if they had made a mistake. 1 year after humanity's departure, Counselor Vextar woke up to his assistant banging on his door. The young Zenthari looked panicked, his silver skin flickering with stress patterns. "Sir, you need to see the emergency reports," the assistant said, holding up a datapad with shaking hands. Vextar rubbed his eyes and took the device. What he read made his blood run cold. 3 separate crises had exploded across the galaxy overnight. Each one was serious enough to threaten Council stability. Together, they spelled disaster. The plague had evolved into 7 different strains. Pirates were attacking trade convoys using new tactics that confused Council security forces. And the Kalari Confederacy, made up of 12 supposedly primitive species, had declared independence from Council authority. How did this all happen? So fast? Vexitar asked. The reports have been building for weeks, sir, but they all reached critical levels at the same time. Vexitar dressed quickly and rushed to the emergency council session. The great chamber was full of worried delegates. Many were speaking in their native languages, creating a chaos of sounds. Some were clearly arguing. Others looked afraid. Counselor Zenthra called for order. "We face multiple crises," she announced. "We must address them logically and systematically." "Systematically?" shouted Counselor Threx. His insect-like body was agitated, wings buzzing rapidly. "Our trade routes are being destroyed. Our authority is being challenged. Our people are dying from this plague. How can we be systematic when everything is falling apart?" Fleet Admiral Kess stood up. She was a Mordoon, a species known for their military skills. "The pirate attacks are unlike anything we've seen before. They're not just stealing cargo. They're targeting specific ships, specific routes. They know exactly where our patrols will be." "That's impossible," Vextar said. "Our patrol schedules are classified." "Then someone is giving them information," Admiral Kess replied grimly. "Or they're using intelligence methods we don't understand." Dr. Yexelon approached the speaking platform. She looked tired and defeated. The plague situation is getting worse. We now have outbreaks on 43 worlds. None of our treatments are working. The disease keeps changing faster than we can study it. What about the human research? Asked a delegate from the back. We've tried to implement their theoretical treatments, Dr. Yexlan said, but we don't understand their methods. The humans wrote about adaptive thinking and intuitive biological modeling. Our scientists can't replicate these approaches. Zenthra accessed her data files. I have been studying human medical records. They often made treatment decisions that seemed illogical, but their success rates were remarkably high. Because they got lucky, Vextar insisted. Human methods were reckless gambling, not real science. Perhaps, Zenthra said. But our real science is failing. A new voice spoke from the upper levels of the chamber. It was Ambassador Felnock of the Drakari, a species that rarely participated in council debates. The Kalari Confederacy has sent us a message. They will no longer accept council guidance. They claim they have learned to govern themselves. Impossible, Vextar said. The Kalari barely have spaceflight. They depend on us for everything. Ambassador Felnock activated a holo display. The message from the Kalari appeared in the center of the chamber. It was a simple text, but its words were shocking. To the Galactic Council, we thank you for your past guidance, but we no longer require it. Our human friends taught us that every species has the right to choose its own path. We choose independence. Any council ships entering our territory will be considered hostile. The chamber erupted in angry sounds. Several delegates began shouting at once. Human friends? Threx buzzed loudly. The humans have been gone for a year. But their influence remains, Felnock said quietly. The Kalari have built new defenses. Their technology has advanced rapidly. They're sharing resources with other species that humans used to help. Admiral Kess pulled up tactical displays. It's worse than that. The Kalari aren't alone. 17 different species have formed mutual defense pacts. They're calling it the Free Species Alliance. Vextar stared at the display. Red zones marked areas where council authority was being challenged. They covered nearly a quarter of the galaxy's inhabited systems. How did this happen? He asked. These species were barely capable of interplanetary travel. Human Captain Choi Jae Min used to work in those regions, Admiral Kess said. I've been reading his old reports. He wasn't just keeping peace. He was teaching these species how to defend themselves. Teaching them what? Everything. Military. Tactics, diplomatic strategies, resource management. He wrote that every species deserved the tools to protect their own people. Dr. Yexlan added more information. I found medical reports from Dr. Lim Jiwoo. She was training local healers in advanced treatment methods, teaching them to adapt human medical technology to their own biology. And engineer Song Min Ho left. Behind detailed technical manuals, said another delegate. Simple instructions for maintaining and improving their infrastructure, written so that any species could understand them. Zenthra processed all this information with her logical mind. The humans weren't just helping these species, they were preparing them for independence. Preparing them for what? Vextar demanded. For life without the council, Zenthra said, simply. They knew they might be forced to leave, so they made sure their friends could survive alone. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans hadn't just been expelled from the council. They had been quietly building a network of independent, capable species that no longer needed council protection. Admiral Kess spoke up again. There's more bad news. The pirate attacks aren't random. I've analyzed the patterns. They're targeting council supply lines specifically, avoiding ships from Free Species Alliance worlds. Are you saying the Alliance is behind the pirate attacks? Vextar asked. I'm saying the pirates know exactly which ships to attack and which to leave alone. That requires detailed intelligence about council operations. Threx made rapid clicking sounds. The humans. They knew our security procedures. They had access to classified information. The humans are gone, Vextar protested. They left a year ago. But they had 50 years to study our methods, Zenthra pointed out. 50 years to understand our weaknesses. If they shared that information with their allies before leaving, the implications were terrifying. Every weakness the Council had, every security flaw, every logistical vulnerability, the humans had seen it all during their time as members. And if they had passed that knowledge to the species they befriended, Dr. Yexalan cleared her throat. There's something else. I've been analyzing the plague outbreaks. They're not random either. The disease is spreading fastest in Council-controlled systems. The Free Species Alliance worlds seem to have better containment procedures. Better how? I don't know. But their quarantine methods are more effective than ours. Almost like they were designed by someone who understood cross-species disease transmission better than we do. Vextar felt sick. Dr. Yoon Hai-Wan, the human xenobiologist, had specialized in exactly that field. Had she taught the Alliance species how to protect themselves from the very plague that was devastating Council worlds? The session continued. For hours, but no solutions emerged. Every problem they faced seemed to have human fingerprints on it, not direct human involvement. The humans were gone. But human knowledge, human preparation, human foresight. As the delegates filed out of the chamber, Zenthra approached Vextar. We need to consider the possibility that we made an error, she said. An error? In forcing the humans to leave. They weren't the problem we thought they were. Vextar looked around the empty chamber. For 50 years, humans had sat in these seats, offering their chaotic solutions and reckless ideas. The Council had voted them out to restore order and peace. Instead, they had created the very chaos they'd hoped to avoid. 2 years had passed since humanity left the galaxy. The Great Council Chamber, once a symbol of galactic unity, now felt like a tomb. Half the seats sat empty. Many species had withdrawn from active participation, focusing on their own survival, as crisis after crisis struck their worlds. Supreme Counselor Threndar stood at the center of the chamber. He was old even by Zenthari standards, his silver skin dulled with age and stress. He had been chosen as Supreme Counselor because the regular leadership had failed. The Council needed someone to blame and someone to fix the disasters they faced. The situation reports, he said to his aide, his voice heavy with exhaustion. The aide, a young Vorthak named Yexpil, handed him a data pad. The numbers made Threndar's heart sink. The plague had reached 97 worlds. Pirates controlled 6 major trade routes. The Free Species Alliance now included 38 different species and controlled a third of the galaxy. How many ships did we lose this week? Threndar asked. 47 cargo vessels, 12 patrol ships, and 3 hospital ships, Yexpil replied quietly. Hospital ships. Threndar looked up sharply. Pirates are attacking medical vessels? No, sir. The hospital ships were destroyed by the plague. The crews died before they could reach their destinations. Threndar closed his eyes. 3 months ago, he had ordered hospital ships to carry medical supplies to the worst affected worlds. It was supposed to be a simple mission, but the plague had evolved again, becoming airborne in some environments. Now even their rescue efforts were failing. What about our attempt to recreate the human medical treatments? Yexpil hesitated. Dr. Yexlan says it's impossible, sir. We found Dr. Seo Kyung-mi's research notes in the archives, her theoretical frameworks for cross-species disease treatment, but her methods don't make sense to our scientists. What do you mean? She writes about biological empathy and pathogen psychology. She describes thinking like the disease itself, understanding its goals and motivations. Our doctors say diseases don't have psychology. Threndar laughed bitterly. Perhaps that's why their treatments don't work. In another part of the council building, Admiral Kess sat in a secure briefing room with her top commanders. The Mordoon military leader looked older than her years. Dark circles surrounded her eyes and her usually perfect uniform was wrinkled. "Show me the tactical situation," she ordered. Commander Veltar activated the holo display. Red zones marked areas under pirate control. Yellow zones showed contested regions. Green zones, representing areas under full council control, had shrunk to barely a quarter of the map. "The pirates aren't acting like normal criminals," Commander Veltar reported. "They have military discipline, advanced tactics, and perfect intelligence about our movements." "Have we identified their command structure?" "That's the problem, sir. They don't seem to have one. Each pirate group operates independently, but they coordinate perfectly. It's like they're following the same strategic plan." Admiral Kess studied the display. "Whose strategic plan?" "We believe it's based on human military doctrine, specifically the methods developed by Admiral Ko Sung-ho and Commander Park Woo-jin. But those officers left with the rest of humanity 2 years ago." "Yes, sir. But their tactical manuals remained in our military databases. We've been studying them ourselves, trying to understand how to fight these pirates." Admiral Kess felt a chill. "Are you telling me we're using human tactics to fight enemies who are also using human tactics?" "Yes, sir. And they're better at it than we are." The conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication. The face of Captain Morthul appeared on the screen. He was commanding a patrol squadron near the Kalari border. "Admiral, we have a situation," Captain Morthul said. His voice was tight with stress. "A Council cargo ship has been captured by pirates." "But the pirates aren't Council species, they're Kalari." Admiral Kess leaned forward. "The Kalari are engaging in piracy?" "No, sir. They're rescuing the crew. The cargo ship was carrying medical supplies to plague worlds. The pirates who captured it were going to steal the supplies and leave the crew to die. The Kalari intervened." "What happened to the pirates?" "The Kalari destroyed their ships and returned the cargo ship to us, with a message." Admiral Kess waited. "They said the Council has forgotten how to protect its own people, so they will do it instead." After the communication ended, Admiral Kess sat in silence. The species they had considered primitive were now protecting Council citizens from pirates, who used Council military tactics. It was madness. Meanwhile, in the Medical Research Center, Dr. Yexelon worked desperately on the plague problem. She had been awake for 36 hours straight, reviewing every piece of human medical research she could find. Her assistant, Dr. Kethel, brought her another data pad. "I found more files from Dr. Yoon Hae-won," he said. "Her personal research, notes, not just the official reports." Dr. Yexlan read through the files. The human woman had written detailed observations about disease behavior, but not in the way Vorthak scientists would approach the problem. Instead of cold analysis, she wrote about diseases as if they were living beings with desires and fears. "Listen to this," Dr. Yexlan said, reading aloud. "The pathogen seeks survival above all else. It jumps between species not out of aggression, but out of fear. Each new host represents safety from extinction. To cure it, we must give it a better option than constant flight." "That's not scientific," Dr. Kethel protested. "Diseases don't feel fear." "But what if they do?" Dr. Yexlan asked. "What if human medical success came from understanding something we can't measure?" She continued reading Dr. Yoon's notes. The human scientist had developed treatments based on this strange approach. Instead of attacking diseases, she had found ways to redirect them, to give them harmless targets, to convince them to evolve into less dangerous forms. "Try to think like the pathogen," Dr. Yoon had written. "What does it need? What does it fear? How can we help it survive without harming its hosts?" Dr. Yexlan looked up from the notes. "We've been fighting this plague for 2 years. What if we've been fighting it wrong?" That evening, Supreme Counselor Threndar called a secret meeting with only his most trusted advisors. They met in a small, secure room deep in the council building. "We need to discuss something that no one wants to admit," Threndar began. "We're losing this war." All of these wars. Counselor Zenthra nodded sadly. Our casualty reports, economic losses, and territorial losses all point to the same conclusion. The Council is failing. What are our options? Asked Admiral Kess. We could try to negotiate with the Free Species Alliance, suggested Dr. Yexlan. Perhaps form a mutual aid agreement. They won't negotiate with us, Threndar said. They see us as the oppressors they freed themselves from. We could attempt to modify our methods, Zenthra offered. Try to think more like humans did. We've been trying that for months, Admiral Kess said. Our people can't replicate human intuition and creativity. We're too logical, too systematic. The room fell silent. Finally, Threndar spoke the words everyone was thinking, but no one wanted to say. We need to find the humans. We need to ask them to come back. The admission hung in the air like a physical weight. For 2 years, the Council had insisted they were better off without humanity. Now their greatest leader was admitting they needed the very species they had expelled. Do we even know where they went? Dr. Yexlan asked. No, Threndar admitted. We told them to leave galactic space entirely. They could be anywhere. Admiral Kess stood up. I'll organize a search mission. We'll send scouts to every system beyond our borders. And if we find them? Zenthra asked. What do we say? That we were wrong? That we need their help? Threndar looked around the room at the faces of his advisors. Each one showed the same expression of defeat and desperate hope. We tell them the truth, he said finally, that without them the galaxy is dying. 3 years after humanity's departure, the Council's search fleet finally found them. Admiral Kess stood on the bridge of her flagship, staring at the massive display screen in disbelief. What she saw changed everything she thought she knew about the galaxy. Are you certain these readings are correct? She asked her navigation officer. Yes, Admiral. We are detecting over 300 inhabited systems in this region, all showing signs of advanced civilization. Admiral Kess felt, her heart's racing. 300 systems. The entire Council space contained only 200 inhabited worlds. How is that possible? This region was empty when we last surveyed it. The survey was 50 years ago, Admiral, before humans joined the Council. The truth hit her like a physical blow. While humanity had been members of the Council, they had been secretly exploring and colonizing vast regions of space. They hadn't just left when expelled, they had somewhere to go. Admiral, her communications officer called out. We're receiving a transmission. From whom? Unknown. But it's in Standard Galactic. They're requesting we identify ourselves. Admiral Kess took a deep breath. Open the channel. A face appeared on the screen. It was human, but not one she recognized. A middle-aged woman with kind eyes and graying hair. She wore a uniform Admiral Kess had never seen before. I am Admiral Ko Sung-ho of the Human Colonial Alliance, the woman said. You are in Alliance space. Please state your business here. I'm Admiral Kess of the Galactic Council, Kess replied. We are looking for humanity. Admiral Ko smiled, but it wasn't a friendly expression. You found us. What do you want? We need to speak with your leaders. We have a proposal. What kind of proposal? Admiral Kess swallowed her pride. We would like to discuss humanity's return to the Council. The silence that followed was deafening. Admiral Ko's expression didn't change, but something cold entered her eyes. Please wait, she said finally. I'll need to consult with higher authority. The screen went dark. Admiral Kess waited for 2 hours before it activated again. This time, a different face appeared. A woman in her 50s with sharp, intelligent features. I am President Jung Hyo-jin of the Human Colonial Alliance, she said. Admiral Ko tells me you want to discuss our return to the Council. Yes, Madam President. The galaxy needs humanity's help. President Jung leaned back in her chair. The galaxy expelled us 3 years ago, quite forcefully, as I recall. We made an error in judgment. An error. President Young repeated the words slowly. You told us we were dangerous, chaotic, that the galaxy would be better without us, Admiral Say. Kes felt ashamed, but she pressed on. The situation has changed. We're facing crises we can't handle alone. What kind of crises? A multi-species plague that we can't cure. Pirates using advanced tactics. Multiple species declaring independence from Council authority. President Young nodded slowly. I see. And you think we can solve these problems? We know you can. We've studied the human research files. Your people had already developed solutions for these exact problems. Solutions you called theoretical nonsense. Admiral Kes closed her eyes. We were wrong. Were you? President Young asked. Or are you just desperate? Before Admiral Kes could answer, President Young continued. Tell me, Admiral, how many species are still members of your council? 31, Admiral Kes admitted. Down from 47 when we left. And how many systems do they control? Approximately 140. Also down from your peak. Meanwhile, the Free Species Alliance has grown to include 42 species across 160 systems. Do you know why? Admiral Kes remained silent. Because we taught them something you never understood. We taught them that strength comes from helping each other, not from controlling each other. President Young activated a display behind her. It showed a map of local space. Council territory was marked in blue, growing smaller each month. Alliance territory was marked in green, expanding steadily. You want us to come back and fix your problems, President Young said. But why would we want to do that? Because people are dying, Admiral Kes said desperately. The plague has killed millions. Pirates are destroying trade. Entire civilizations are collapsing. In Council space, President Young corrected. In Alliance space, we have effective treatments for the plague. Our anti-piracy measures work. Our member species are thriving. Admiral Kes stared at the map. How? We learned from our mistakes. When the Council expelled us, we decided to build something better. A true alliance where every species has an equal voice. Where problems are solved through cooperation, not control. The Council could change, Admiral Kes offered. We could reform our methods. President Young smiled sadly. Admiral, do you know who I am? The leader of humanity. I used to be Ambassador Han Bora. I sat in your council chambers for 15 years, trying to convince your people to work together as equals. Do you remember what you told me? Admiral Kes felt cold dread in her stomach. You said some species were naturally superior to others. That hierarchy was the natural order. That primitive species needed guidance from their betters. President Young leaned forward. Has that philosophy changed? Admiral Kes wanted to lie, but she couldn't. No. Then nothing has changed. You still see yourselves as the rightful rulers of the galaxy. You still think other species exist to serve your purposes. The only difference is that now you need something from us. The truth of it was devastating. The Council hadn't learned to see other species as equals. They had simply discovered they needed humanity's skills. What can we do? Admiral Kes asked quietly. You can continue on your current path, President Young said. Try to maintain control over shrinking territory while your civilization slowly collapses. Or what? You can ask to join the Alliance? Admiral Kes nearly fell out of her chair. Join the Alliance? But we're the Galactic Council. You're 31 species clinging to outdated ideas about superiority and control. The Alliance is 67 species working together as equals. President Young paused. Of course, joining would require giving up your claims to authority over other species. That's impossible. The Council has led the galaxy for 1,000 years. And look where that leadership has brought you. Admiral Kes struggled with the concept. The proud Galactic Council, rulers of civilized space, begging to join an alliance of species they had considered inferior. Would Would humanity consider individual applications? She asked. If council species wanted to join the alliance separately? President Jung nodded. Any species that renounces claims of superiority over others and commits to genuine cooperation would be welcome. We've already received applications from 17 council member species. 17? Admiral Kess was shocked. Your people are not fools, Admiral. They can see which direction the galaxy is moving. The communication ended, leaving Admiral Kess alone with her thoughts. She looked at her crew, seeing the same realization in their eyes. The galaxy had moved on without the Council. Humanity hadn't just survived their expulsion. They had built something better. 3 months later, the Galactic Council held its final session. Only 12 species remained as members. The rest had joined the Alliance or formed their own confederations. Supreme. Councillor Threndar stood in the nearly empty chamber. The Council formally dissolves, he announced to the few remaining delegates. Each member species is free to choose its own path. One by one, the remaining species applied to join the Human Colonial Alliance. Some were accepted immediately. Others were asked to prove their commitment to equality and cooperation. The council building was converted into a museum. Tourists from across the galaxy came to see the chambers where the old order had ruled. They learned about the species that had thought themselves superior to others and how that pride had led to their downfall. In the museum's central display was a plaque with a simple message. The greatest strength is not the power to rule others, but the wisdom to serve alongside them. Humanity had left the galaxy 3 years ago, but in the end, the galaxy had come to them, and in doing so, it had finally learned what the humans had been trying to teach all along. The age of the Galactic Council was over. The age of the Alliance had begun.